This idea of prayer as a child was confusing because I wasn't quite sure what God was like that I was praying to, whether I was in God's good graces today or wasn't good enough, whether my prayers would get heard, whether I deserved to get them heard, was it within God's will, and how did God answer prayers? You know, as a little kid, you kind of wondered if it's like a magic wand where poof, you know, your favorite cookies show up at lunch today, or that boy, you know, maybe that's it. God can control that boy's attitude and he will ask me to the dance. Go, God. It wasn't really until I came into Unity and I started listening to Myrtle's experience with prayer that I finally had a new point of view. And since we're talking about the heart of unity and Myrtle today, I'm going to be sharing a lot from Myrtle's letters for you because they're not that easily accessible. There are a couple books you might want to lay your hands on. One is called Myrtle Fillmore's Healing Letters, and the other is called How to Let God Help You. But I'm going to pull in some passages today from various letters just so you can get a feel for where she was coming from. And it might actually change your own mind about prayer. One of the most common things that was different for me when it came to Unity's form of prayer was that it wasn't asking God to do something. It was basically giving thanks that God has already done something and to acknowledge what God has done by God being what God is in our being. So, for instance, when she was facing tuberculosis and had been given a death sentence 6 months away, she came into this understanding that she was actually a spiritual being. She did not have to inherit tuberculosis from her family. She did not have to inherit a weak body from her parents or her genetic line. She was a spiritual being, a child of God, an expression of the divine. And whatever God was in her, as her. So some of the ways that she described God expressing in her body, up here on the screen, Paul, if we can show this, she would refer and speak and praise her body as vigorous and energetic and strong and intelligent, because that's the nature of God in her. She talked about it being alive with the sweet, pure, wholesome energy, active, drawing on an unlimited source, that her eyes, which she was struggling with, were clear and bright, and that the pure love of the Christ flowed in and through her heart. Now, those are some powerful words, yes? Can't you just feel those coming alive in your body? She wasn't asking for that to be done. She was acknowledging and affirming that those qualities of God were already present in her body. She wasn't reaching out to a God off somewhere at the edge of the solar system or the universe. She said in her letter up here on the screen from her book, Healing Letters, prayers aren't sent out at all. Where would we send our prayers? We should direct them to our minds and hearts and affairs. That's new. Sometimes we pray to a God outside of ourselves. It's the God in the midst of us that frees and heals. With the eye of faith, we must see God in our flesh, see that wholeness for which we're praying in every part of the body temple. Prayer is not for the purpose of petitioning God to heal you, but it's for the purpose of making you receptive to the good that you're asking. To make you receptive to the good that you're asking, which means deepening your faith. That's what making yourself receptive to God's good is. It's strengthening your faith. And Jesus told us that it's our faith that makes us whole, that allows our well-being to come through. So it wasn't that there was magic in those words, but it required that she was able to see, almost as science is trying to show us today, that if you delve down into a cell under a microscope, it's mostly space. And we would say that that space is divine substance, divine energy, divine intelligence. That's what our eyes need to be seeing when we are praying for health in our bodies, to look past the germ or the virus and focus on the life energy of God. So we're not talking about these words being magic. We're talking about these words changing our mind, renewing our subconscious, because everything in our body and in our life experience is built from the subconscious out. Good news is we feed the subconscious. We're in charge of what goes into it. So this is about establishing what goes in by affirming the truth about God in our lives.